If your biceps are small, try out these 3 special techniques that all work together. First of all, if you're following a classic body part split or push-pull setup, you'll notice that upper body days typically pair chest with triceps and back with biceps. This makes sense because the isolation work includes the same muscles as the compounds and don't interfere with upcoming workouts due to muscular overlap. However, if your biceps are lagging, I'd recommend reversing this order by switching to chest and biceps instead of back and biceps. And for optimal results, definitely start your workout with curls. This is old school muscle priority, allowing you to train biceps with no central fatigue and recruit all motor units with the highest stimulus, similar to an arm day. But the great news here is that this is not pre-exhaust and therefore has very little impact on the upcoming presses. This method is much better than starting with curls than hitting pull-ups and rows because that has a noticeable performance drop-off. So unless your back is overly developed, I wouldn't recommend that for most lifters. But with chest and biceps pairing, there's no problems, eliminating the need for a separate arm day. On top of that, there's the bonus of increased biceps frequency since your back day will also engage them, ensuring they're consistently stimulated throughout the week. So you can confidently go heavy on your curls and give it your 100% without worrying about recovery. And if you previously struggle with work capacity or tend to half-ass your curls after the compound movements, well, this setup universally solves this. The only limiting factor is your motivation to push, since fatigue is never a factor. And given that curls offer a favorable stimulus to fatigue ratio, you can push to failure and even beyond without ever worrying about what comes after, where you can now bench press your usual weights, feeling as if the workout is just kicking off. Despite having already pushed your biceps to their limit, it's win-win. And split-wise, this may explain why Dorian Yates also trained this manner with his chest and biceps days. His biceps were comparatively lagging, and this approach worked for him. Now, you'll obviously not achieve even a fraction of Mr. Olympia level gains, let's be real, but the logic is still sound. So we should recognize and appreciate intelligent training options. Put simply, this pairing offers dual benefits. It allows you to train your biceps while they're fresh and doesn't compromise the rest of the workout, unlike traditional pre-exhaust. Now, my second tip is about which exercise you should start with, and that is a hammer curl. Why? Well, the primary function of the biceps is elbow flexion, and hammer curls alone could lead to significant growth if you got strong over time. Someone who can hammer curl the 60s won't have small biceps even if they never went underhand. Just saying. That said, while you technically don't need to supinate your wrist, it's beneficial. So please don't misinterpret my message. I'm just pointing out that the biceps are still heavily engaged even with neutral hand positions, which is important because hammer curls are gentler on the elbow joints and serve as a warm-up, while including a bit more brachialis and forms without taking away from the biceps. This extra biasing is important because a developed brachialis pushes the biceps outward, creating an illusion of bigger arms and more distinct separation between the biceps and the triceps, especially when lean or shredded. It almost appears like your biceps start lower on the mid-arm. Like, just observe my favorite back double bicep pose as an example, and you can clearly see what I'm talking about. Since my biceps are actually lagging, but the brachialis gains corrects the aesthetics. This could be the same for you if you're not blessing the bicep department. Also, since the forearms tire out, your next curls feature a beneficial form of pre-exhaust, in the sense that your biceps will be forced to take on all the work. This is amazing for those who struggle with biceps activation, or for those who mostly feel curls in their forearms, where the pumps are too much to bear. So by splashing in a bit of forearm stimulation early on, it forces greater mind-muscle connection in the biceps, enabling you to push through more challenging curls later, like barbell curls, all without experiencing issues like golfer's elbow, which is really nice for those of us with hypermobile or sensitive elbows, especially if you're a big boy where alignment matters more since your lats are pushing your arms out. So my experience, during my recent contest prep, I've always introduced my biceps training with hammer curls before transitioning to supinated curls. I did this for several months, which was perfect for joint integrity and guaranteed pure biceps activation every time, as I'm very forearm dominant. Just a little something for you to consider. This is the type of pre-exhaust that we're looking for, and it doesn't take much to quickly get the effect. Even one set before moving on to your supinated work makes a big difference. So I'm not suggesting that you do 1,000,000 hammer curls before your supinated work. No, just that you begin with it, you warm up thoroughly, and then you move on to the brutal stuff. Speaking of which, after your hammer curls, I'd recommend starting with squeeze-based curls, such as spider curls, expander curls, and or regular cable curls, where the top portion is quite difficult because they'll further warm up the entire arm. Plus, muscles are weaker in the shortened position and fatigue faster. So if you initiate with a lengthened curl like incline curls or pelican curls, your capacity to push through on expander curls will be compromised. This is because you might fatigue prematurely past the midpoint, thinking you hit failure when it was actually an exercise sticking point, which was made difficult to overcome due to faulty exercise order, or rather subpar in this context, which matters for low volume, high intensity programs where efficiency is key. That's why with mechanical drop sets, we begin with the shortened curl and conclude with the lengthened. Now, if you don't have any short work, just mid and lengthen, then starting with the lengthen is fine. But do pay attention to any possible negative pains, which could be more common if opening with something like preacher curls or incline curls. So I believe reversing the order is more sensible for the biceps, since you won't need to overload on the stretching aspect, which is definitely safer on your elbows and tendons, allowing you to gradually build up strength without compromising the stimulus. So if your incline curl drops 10 pounds, but you're shredding the same with little prior fatigue, isn't that good for getting more out of less weight? Plus, incline curls feature a ton of muscle damage, so if you feel the muscles more with better form and it doesn't hurt the joints as much, how is that not preferable? An ideal biceps routine might involve 1 to 2 sets of hammer curls, 2 sets of either expander curls or spider/cable curls, followed by 2 sets of either incline curls or preacher curls, for a total of 5 to 6 high-quality work sets done early within the session, with the least amount of fatigue between exercises, while getting the desired targeting effect. It doesn't get more efficient than that, so try this, and I guarantee you'll have consistently great biceps workouts where everything feels amazing and pumped up without the bad discomfort. Lastly, regarding your actual back days, which as I mentioned earlier provide additional biceps frequency due to the indirect stimulus from pulling, I would highly recommend transitioning all pulls to an underhand grip. However, for your starter pull, a neutral grip can be used for warming up and achieving that brachialis and form effect that I discussed earlier. This principle still applies to compound movements, but the following pulls should feature an underhand grip. Doing so doesn't detract from the back stimulus. It simply enhances biceps activation and might favor lats more, since an underhand position naturally encourages more elbow tucking. This adjustment can certainly alter the arm path, but the back always remains the prime mover in pulls. So let's never forget that. We're just optimizing the little flexion aspect of the biceps and approach failure with fewer reps in reserve, because obviously it won't be 0 since it's a compound movement, but it's about making the indirect stimulus count, getting the most out of it, getting more effective reps for the elbow flexors with the back volume, even if it's not optimal in the purest sense. Like, it should be common sense that those with lagging biceps would benefit more from chin-ups rather than super wide grip pull-ups. So a good workout could be 2 sets of ring chins, 2 sets of underhand lat pull downs, either one arm or bilateral, and 2 sets of underhand barbell rows or even supinated machine rows. Actually, the Yates row would fit perfectly here, and being the last exercise, you won't need to go heavy, so the risk of biceps tears is minimized. Plus, alignment won't be as important since the weights are so much lighter. Makes sense? Again, all 3 of these tips reinforce the exact same benefits, but in a different way. They really feed into each other and should overcome most biceps plateaus for some time. So give them an honest shot and share some of your favorite special biceps building techniques. And I'll talk to you next time.